TFT have done some really good musicals, but they've been quite poppy, kind of a typical style of musical, and I wanted to do something that was a little bit different, a little bit darker, a little bit more original. And so I decided that actually Sweeney Todd would be a really interesting one to be able to do at Titchfield. It's a really dark musical in itself. It's very complex in its music, in the singing, all the different harmonies, and everybody having to sing over one another. And I think that would have been it was something different that we haven't done yet here at Titchfield. So Sweeney Todd, he comes back to London after being banished by the judge many years before. And he's come back for revenge. He's come back to find his family. And what he's found is that actually his wife has passed away and his daughter is now the ward of the judge. And he seeks revenge for this. And along that plot, we also get the wonderful character Anthony, who falls in love with Joanna, who happens to be Sweeney Todd's daughter. And so we've got this wonderful love story happening as a subplot. And also we've got the formidable Mrs. Lovett, who is great at kind of stringing old Sweeney Todd along, and their paths kind of intertwine. I don't want to say too much because it's going to give it all away, but yeah, that's kind of the overview, and it's how he seeks his revenge for what happened to him and his family. So we actually pitched for Sweeney Todd last year. So the initial ideas, the initial designs, the concept that we had in place, we put together last year. And so obviously everything had to kind of change because of COVID. And what it has meant is that we've had to really think about how we can engage with actors on stage, because it had to be socially distanced. How do you show death when you can't physically touch somebody because of the measures that have to currently be in place in order for us to perform. So the show that we initially started with is completely disappeared, and as a creative team we had to really form different ideas and be extremely creative and come up with very unusual concepts that you wouldn't normally see for a Sweeney Todd show, that I believe. And I think it's added to it, if I'm completely honest, because it's meant that we've had that amazing process of really diving into different ideas. We've worked really well with the cast. They've come up with some wonderful ideas as cast members of what actually they felt their character would be able to do. And for me, that really has made this extra special, because it's completely different now to that kind of copy and paste kind of version that we would have expected originally. Ultimately, yes, as a cast, our show has had to make sure that it's socially distanced on stage. We also have to make sure that we had to adhere to certain rules about the distances you're allowed to be when singing, which it constantly kept changing as well. So we've had to really keep make sure that we knew the guidelines, make sure we had that information, and then constantly we've managed to adapt it each month, slowly and surely, to what it has become now. And we've been very fortunate, because it has meant things like from going from 3 meters, which we had to start at the beginning of June because you weren't allowed to sing unless you were 3 meters apart, to gradually getting to 2 meters, and now we're allowed to be at 1 meter. So as you can see, already each month it's been a different challenge as we've slowly stepped a little bit closer, but we've had to make sure that all of that is in place and still visually looks interesting, engaging, and can still convey the story that needs to be told. And I think we've managed to achieve that. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the audiences think of it. But as a cast and crew, I know we're extremely proud of what it's become. So the original design and concept that I had was to do something completely different that had never been done at Titchfield Festival Theatre. And what I really wanted was for there to be a cube which had all of the kind of different rooms on it that revolved, so that each scene was about this cube moving around the entire time and the actors doing their bits, and there was still an upstairs and downstairs, but it was all about this cube revolving. And so our initial ideas, the way we were actually structuring all of the rehearsal processes and what we were doing with the cast members was on this focus on the fact that it was going to be a revolving cube. And then COVID came along, and we had to have a real big think about the possibilities of what we would be allowed to do if we were allowed to put this show on, because this was back in March, April, and so we started having some discussions, because we felt as a production team, we kind of felt that we really had to focus on the fact that there was definitely going to be some sort of social distancing put into place should we be allowed to reopen theatres by the time of Sweeney. And so, unfortunately, my amazing idea for this revolving cube, we had to just rethink, because it would have involved quite a lot of extra hands having to help us move it, which meant we'd have more technical crew, more stage hands, which ultimately are more people that we have to factor in on how many you're allowed in the space and how many you're allowed to react against each other. And so we decided to actually go for a lot more traditional staging, and it was purely on the fact that we needed the upstairs and downstairs and X amount of space, so that we knew that we could distance characters and the performers themselves to make sure that we could put on a production. And so we had to rethink it. We, me and my mum actually made some plans. We built like a little set design, and it's changed various times. So the design that we originally set, we then compared to what we've now got on stage, we flipped completely, because actually it didn't work with our actors to have Sweeney and Lovett on this side, so we've moved it to the other side and things like that. But ultimately, we did have to go for a kind of really traditional upstairs, downstairs with the Sweeney and Mrs. Lovett, and then obviously the floor spacing, and then Joanna on the other, Joanna's room up on the other side. And it was all kind of down to that social distancing having to be in place, and us making sure that we can portray the story as safely as we could as a production team and as a cast. This is hard for me, because as with Sweeney Todd, the musical is very much like an opera, so it is non-stop, and you'll find a lot of the songs are at least like 8 minutes long, and they just go on and on. There's all different complexities up and down, and it's phenomenal. And it's really hard to pick kind of, there's lots of moments which I absolutely love. One of my absolute favourites is Kiss Me Part 2. There's 4 fantastic cast members on this, and they do portray it beautifully, and there's lots of different melodies, there's lots of they're all overlapping, and it all comes together. But when it's done right and our cast members do it, it is so beautiful that you sit there and you're like, yes, this is brilliant. It's moments like that. So for Kiss Me Part 2 is one of those moments. Joanna in Act 2 is similar to that. It's where it's got all the different melodies of different songs, all kind of complexly, I can't say it right, kind of competing against each other, but beautifully and really, and again, I'm going to do a huge mention to Daniel, because Daniel is he's our musical director, but also he is the band. He does all of it, and so to be able to play that with all the different kind of it is the melodies, but all those different moments and all the different tunes and all the different things, and he does that all by himself, when normally there's a band that's helping you do that, is incredible. So it's moments like that where you sit there and you just think, yes, this is wonderful, and it's really clever of the cast to do it. It's at Titchfield Festival Theatre from the 9th of September until the 19th of September. There's 12 performances. So on a Saturday and Sunday, there are matinee performances. And on the Saturday itself, it has the matinee and the evening performance. No show on a Monday, that is our day off. And also on the very last 2 performances, we are live streaming on Titchfield Festival Theatre's Facebook page, which is entirely free. So anybody that would like to see it and aren't able to get to the theatre can just tune in on the Facebook page and watch us live.